So let's look at the whiteboard. You can find the whiteboard on the home page and also within the apps area. So this is the whiteboard. What we'll do is we're going to start working from left to right. So looking firstly then at the menu, you'll see there's a few things there. The first one are the writing settings. Now in the writing settings, you've got two different options. You have the pen configurations and the pen recognition. So let's go to pen configurations first. Now there are actually 10 different pen types. You have a choice of up to 6 pens that you can choose. So let's go through and we'll look at each one in turn. So we've got a pen. We have like a highlighter. There's a paintbrush, a fountain pen, text recognition, shape recognition, simple equations, soft ball, and then we have two different pens, a rainbow pen and a sparkly pen. So let's click on confirm. If looking at the pen recognition, what that does is it shows you how you can use your finger and how you can use the pen. So the pens themselves have two ends. If you have a look, you'll see that there is a fine end and a fat end, and the finger will work like the fat end. So if you find that you can't change the color of one of the ends, it could be that it has gone to traditional rather than to dual. One of the other things that you can do is to change the background. So you'll see that currently the background is that green color. That's the default color. So whenever you come in, that's what you're going to have. You can change the color. If you set it to default, then it will always be that color when you open up the whiteboard next time. There's also some pictures. The pictures are actually some predefined templates that have been set up. So you can see here then we have some lines, we've got grids, we have a Venn diagram, there's also some sporting ones, some music ones, and of course just clicking on the white one in the top left-hand side with the red line through it will just take that away. Under Customize, there's a plus there. You are able to add your own backgrounds. This is such a great feature. It's one of the most common ones we get asked all the time are the writing lines for the year ones. As long as you can make a photo of that particular background that you want, store it on the panel, and then add it into here so that you can use those backgrounds whenever you like. Another option is to have some things like at Christmas time, have some Christmas trees or something that they can colour in. Back to the menu. The next fair few are actually to do with files. So you can see here we can create a new file. There's also an open and a save. So if you're in the middle of an exercise and it's time to go, then you can save it and open it the next day. It will save it in the files area in an area called Note at the top. So that's where you'll find all of those files and you can then just double click them and they'll open up. You'll also notice that we have an import. Import will allow you to import photos into the whiteboard. And we also have a save as so that you can save what's on the whiteboard as either a PDF or as a photo. One of the other features that's really quite handy is the browser. So we can bring in Google, Bing or DuckDuckGo. So let's make it Google. And you can see then we have the Google browser. We can then enlarge it. You can move it around. And then you would just type in the actual address into the Google bar. Moving along, we have a share. So with share, you can use the QR code. A lot of places do have this locked down. So it will depend on your organisation whether or not you can actually do that. You need to be on exactly the same Wi-Fi network as the panel. So you would just scan it and whatever is on the actual whiteboard will then appear on your device. Now let's start looking at the middle area of icons on the menus. So first of all, the pen. So you need to use the pen to configure it. So using the small end of the pen, tap the words pen on the actual menu itself. You'll notice that the 6 pens have appeared on the left-hand side, and there is a particular colour that's chosen, which in this case is the green. So we can change the colour using the pen. Let's make it red, and we've just changed the size. So now using the small end of the pen, now turning the pen around to the fat end, let's tap again. And this time now we can change the colour again. So let's now make it yellow. And we've made it a lot bigger. So now we've got the 2 ends of the pen. You'll notice if I use the pen, it's now yellow. And if I use my finger, it's yellow as well. So the reason why it's quite handy to have the 2 different pens configured to be different colours is that you can write something like we did turn the pen around and use it to bring attention to something. So that's really quite a handy tool. Now, using the small end of the pen again, let's start looking at some of the other options that we have. So we have here the highlighter. Let's look at the next one, which is the text recognition. You'll notice then that my text changed to a particular font. You can't change the font. It will do sentences or whatever it is that you are writing. All right, let's look at the next one. Now, this is the shapes recognition. So once it's set up, you can draw a shape, and what it does is it will actually convert it into a nice, neat shape. What you do need to do is to actually make sure that you have the solid lines is done in one hit. You'll notice that here I was trying to do a triangle and the lines weren't connected and it can't understand what it is. We do have shapes area as well, but if you are doing a number of shapes, this is much quicker than actually going into shapes, selecting the shape, drawing the shape, coming back out, selecting shapes, going, and for example. So this is a much better option. Okay, so now let's look at the next pen type, and this is for simple equations. So you notice it's converted my equation into a nice font. It actually has a little cover over the answer. And if I click on the little I in the top right-hand corner, it will then display the answer. Let's look at the last pen type. And this is a sparkly pen. Now, what it does is every stroke that you have, it puts in a different color. So that can be a lot of fun. The other pen type is a sparkly pen type where actually every letter, the colour actually changes as you're writing. Now, it's very important that you remember to take it back to an ordinary pen. Otherwise, you could end up with all sorts of things happening. So let's go and change it back. Now, the next one along is the eraser. Now, there are 3 different ways to erase. The first one is the clear all. So by swiping it to the right, it will then erase everything off the screen. You'll see then we have 2 other options. We have a point eraser. Now, the point eraser is where you use your hand, and I'm sure you've used that before. What it does is it will remove text, but see how it's not erasing the actual objects themselves. So to do that, we need to go to the object eraser, and then we can just put a line through it. The object eraser also works with text. Okay, the next one along is shapes. You'll see there we have 2D shapes and 3D shapes. So select the shape, select the colour, and then what we do is we go to the starting point and then we drag. Using 3D shapes is exactly the same. Choose the shape, choose the colour, choose the starting point and drag. Okay, so the next one along then is a select. So click select. Now what we can do is we can use our pen or a finger to actually circle what we want to select, or we could tap the outside edge. You'll notice then that a little tiny menu has appeared. So we can duplicate, we can cut. The next 2 are about layering, putting things on top and bottom. We can choose the colour, and obviously we can delete. You'll see in the corners you have some round circles. We can use those to extend the shape or reduce the size of the shape. And then there is also the rotate option. Working with text can be a lot of fun. So when we're using the select. So let's select the word. You'll notice we have similar options on the menu as we did for the shape. So we can duplicate, cut, we've got the layering, we've got different colours, we can delete. But now there's a new little toolbar at the bottom. So we can search, and also we have this A in a box. So the A in a box actually then adds a few extra things to the particular menus. And you'll see there is one with a box with a pen in it. So it then will let you add extra notes and extra text and typing them in. But what I really love is actually the search. And what it does is it will go to the internet and it will locate whatever word it is that you have typed in. So then we can add those images into our whiteboard by just holding down a long press. Isn't that an awesome feature? Okay, so let's remove all of those. The next one along are our rulers. So you'll notice then we have a number of things. We've got rulers, set squares, protractors. So there's your ruler there. You can extend the size of the ruler. You can actually show the length in centimetres on the actual ruler itself. You need to use the pen to get a nice fine line on the ruler. You'll see in the left-hand side, you can rotate the ruler. Okay, let's close that ruler down. You also have a protractor here we can use to create angles. So using one of those white dots, you can move the line to create the angle that you'd like. And then from here, click on the little pen, and it then has created the actual angle, and it's put the size of the lines as well. Okay, the next one along, zoom, what that does is it lets you expand and contract what you see on the screen. So you see we've got some writing, we've been brainstorming something, and we now need some more space. What we can do is contract it. So click on zoom, and using your two fingers, you can actually then contract what you see, and you can move it around so that you have more space to add some more text. You can also use this to expand. So using your two fingers again on the panel, take them apart. And you'll see there that you need to click zoom first, otherwise you get more lines because pen was actually still connected. Okay, so then let's start looking at the tools. So the first tool that is there is the split canvas. This lets more than one student work on the panel at any one time. You'll see that there's an option for either 2 or 3 students. The whiteboard is now split in half. There are pen colours at the bottom. And so if each student wants to then write and go into the other person's area, you'll notice that it can't. It actually stops them in the middle. The next tool is a screenshot, which we have looked at earlier in our tools area. Magnifier, we looked at in our tools area. There is a mind map. There's also a sheet. The sheet is like a table that is adding into the whiteboard. One of the things about this is if you start writing inside one of the cells, it actually will expand that cell to match whatever it is that you've written. Using the selection, you can actually add and remove cells in that table. Moving over to the right, you'll see we have an undo and a redo. Now also, if we're using select and we want to copy to duplicate it something, you'll now notice that another symbol has appeared to the right of the undo and redo. And if we select that, you'll now see that we have a duplicate copy. Moving over to the right, so you'll notice that we have one of one. So our whiteboard document at the moment only has one page. Clicking on the plus will add extra pages into our whiteboard. So you'll notice now I have 7. You'll notice I've gone back to the default color because I didn't click set to default. If I tap the 7 of 7, then you'll notice it actually shows us each of the particular pages. Each of those pages can be set to be a different color. So if I select page number 3, you'll notice it now says 3 of 7 in the pages area. So clicking on the menu, you'll see now that page 3 is pink, page 1 is still blue, page 2 is green, and page 3 is pink. So you could have, for example, lots of different colours for different types of work or for different students. So that's the whiteboard. I'm now going to exit, and then we're back to the home screen.